It's time for another Dirt Daily, and today I'm going to talk about an off-road competition that I was invited to be a part of. But first, this episode is presented by Warn. Warn and the Warn family of companies is probably the great-grandfather of the off-road industry. Warn has been making stuff for off-road vehicles longer than anybody else. That right there, that's not a Warn. This is probably the only thing in my yard that doesn't have a Warn winch on the front. If you're thinking about Warn, think about it like if all the off-road industry is the Smurfs, Warn is Papa Smurf. And if you don't know what a Smurf is, you're young. Okay, what are we talking about today? Well, I was invited to an event called the Matt's Off-Road Games. And if you don't know what that is, you're probably living underneath a rock. There's this guy, Matt. He has this YouTube channel. It's got gazillions of followers, and he makes videos about recovery off-road, like tow trucks. He builds off-road tow trucks. He goes, helps people get unstuck. It's a thing. It's enormous. I never saw this coming. I've been in the off-road industry for over 25 years. I never saw a trend where people would be building off-road tow trucks, but it's happened. And it's huge. And actually a year ago, a couple years ago, they started putting on this off-road event called Matt's Off-Road Games out in Utah, out in Sand Hollow, which is a great place to go four-wheeling. And then I think a year ago, my buddy Dave Chappelle got invited. And then this year, I kind of got invited. Somebody else was invited, then they asked me to be their co-driver, then they backed out, and I was like, do you guys still want me to go? And they were like, yeah. So as luck would have it, now I'm co-driving with my buddy Dave Chappelle. And we are not in the tow truck battle royale. We are in the Jalopy Jeep competition. And the Jalopy Jeep competition is kind of neat. It's basically Jeep Truck Challenge, but in a more modern version, and it has a little bit more budget than what we had, but about the same. At the end of the day, the rules are $5,000-ish. I'm pretty sure it's kind of blurry on the actual value, but everybody's shooting for something cheap. 33-inch tires, max. I think max, maybe minimum, but I think max. So it has to be something on small tires. And you need to have safety gear as well. So roll cage or roll bar, etc. The safety stuff is not included in the budget. That's just so that nobody gets dead. All right, so fast forward, Dave and I are talking about what should we take, what should we build, how should we build something? And honestly, I was like, I don't need another project, which is a lie. I always need more projects. But we came up with this. This is the trophy tracker, the Chevy tracker that we took over Pritchett Canyon, and we literally winched it most of the whole trip. And we were like, yeah, let's take that. And I started kind of stockpiling some parts to beef it up and make it better. And then I noticed that there were some other people building Suzukis, like a couple other teams. And I was like, yeah, this is the Jalopy Jeep competition. I don't think we should bring a Suzuki. I think we should bring a Jeep, which is kind of hard because Jeeps are not usually cheap. But I've got a couple Jeeps, so let's take this one. This is Old Blue. Do you guys remember Old Blue? Dave and I actually competed in another event in Old Blue. Old Blue was on Dirt Every Day for a lot of episodes. It originally was in a Jeep Truck Challenge. But before that even, it was in an episode where I got it running with Freiberger and Rick Payway in Rick Payway's backyard. And this Jeep, I bought it from a guy. Actually, I bought it from a junkyard. So somebody donated this to a junkyard or turned it in or sold it to a junkyard. And I bought it. And then I was like, I want to get this thing running. And it turned out the engine had water, rainwater or some sort of water in one whole cylinder. So I pulled the spark plugs to spray
some of this penetrating oil down the spark plugs. And when I got to the very last spark plug, it's pouring water out. Is that bad?
And it's got a Buick V6 under the hood, and I got all the water out of it. The engine wouldn't turn, and we took it to Payway's backyard, and Freiberger and Payway and I messed with it and got the engine to turn. We basically put a breaker bar on the crank and rocked it back and forth continually until it finally broke loose. And I think we also filled all the cylinders with PB Blaster and ATF and diesel fuel and every other thing we could get to kind of get in there and break up the rust. And then we tooled around in it. And then after that, I took it on Jeep Truck Challenge. We put a roll bar in it. I put a roll bar in it. And then I feel like there was another episode. I don't even remember all the episodes. But Old Blue eventually was in an event where Dave and I competed in this at Hollister Hills against Team Dahlberger, which is actually Freiberger and Dulcich. But as it turned out, Dulcich couldn't make it. So it was actually Payway and Freiberger. And it was so much fun. Like, they had this CJ5 with like a rowdy engine, and we had Old Blue. And there's some great pics where we almost flopped this thing over in a mud pit. We won because it was our episode and we could claim that we won, but we probably didn't really win. But at the end of the day, Old Blue is ironic because it's not actually really blue, it's white, but like the engine was all painted blue and the hood is painted blue, or some of the hood, and a whole bunch of parts inside of it were painted blue. And it's been used and abused and put out wet, but it's so much fun. And we needed a Jalopy Jeep for this Jalopy Jeep shootout, and it didn't actually have to be a Jeep, and it actually had to be $5,000, give or take. And I don't really know what this thing is worth anymore, but it's a great little Jeep, and we're gonna have a lot of fun in it. So let's get this thing running, see what it needs, so that we can get it ready for Matt's Off-Road Games Jalopy Jeep Shootout 2026. This is gonna be awesome. Let's get to work. This Jeep CJ3A is pretty much stock, though it does have a Buick V6 under the hood, and the steering has been converted to a manual Saginaw style. But the rest of it, pretty much stock. It has a T90 transmission, Spicer 18 transfer case, stock axles, stock body. I don't think it has any lift on it. And I did put the trickle charger on the battery. I have messed with the wiring. The Buick V6 does have headers on it. And let's see, does this thing have any coolant in it? It does have coolant. I don't know if it has gas. It's been a while since I've driven this. The tires are flat, but let's see if it'll even crank over. Maybe not start, but even if it'll crank over, and then we'll air up the tires and get it in the shop. It has been raining here a fair bit. But this thing almost always starts. That's a good sign. I don't know if it has fuel. The fuel filter looks a little dry. I'll give it a little splash of that. See what happens. It doesn't seem to want to kick over. Give her a shot right down the gullet. That ought to do something if we're getting spark. There it goes. All right, there's an old plastic inline fuel filter right here, and it looks pretty dry. I'll give her one more shot of this to see if it kicks over. Okay, here's what I'm deciding. Maybe it doesn't have any fuel. I think there's a good chance this tank is empty. Actually, I guess I could just look down in it. Telephone, flashlight. There's something in there. I think I need to I think what we'll do is we'll air up the tires, put it in gear, kind of limp it over to flat land, because it's a little bit of a hill right here. Limp it over to flat land, put some fresh gas in the tank, and see if we're getting fuel. There's 150% chance that this needs a fuel pump, because everything I touch or own always needs a fuel pump. But I think we'll just start by airing up the tires, and then we'll see if we can get it to run. I really hope this 50-foot air hose that I just bought reaches. Looks like it will just barely. Yes. I bought these tires in 1996. And they are pretty bad. Like, the tread is peeling off of the sidewall, but the tread itself is still pretty new. It's just that these tires are really old, but they hold air still. They're an old set of BF Goodrich mud terrains. I bought these at a Land Rover dealership. These tires were used in an event called Trek, where they would take these Land Rover Discoveries and do these like kind of off-road competitions that were sort of camel trophy-ish. And I bought these because they were super cheap and I was poor and I needed some cool mud tires for one of my Jeep trucks, my forward control. And the ironic thing is my buddy Bob, who I did a video before about his Land Rover, he was one of the guys running Trek. And he and I are now friends. Oh boy. This doesn't feel like we have any brakes at all. It also sounds like the starter's about dead. Not the starter, but the battery. Well, got it moved a little bit. Oh! There's something to be said for a flat fender that you can kind of manhandle. Other than the fact that it's a rainy day, it doesn't want to move. Come on, little Jeep. Let's get you down here where it's flatter and drier. There we go. Well, that's a start. I think we got to put the battery charger back on you. Look at this. Try that with your 1-ton Cummins dually. Oh yeah. Oh, don't hit the fence. Okay, good. I'll just give it a little turn. I like little rigs. Little 4x4s are fun. All right, how about right there? Let's go get the battery charger. I screwed up. Hopefully I didn't screw up too bad, but I did screw up. So I rolled this thing out here and then it started to rain. And it doesn't usually rain in my town. Like our winters are pretty mild compared to like the rest of the country, but we do get rain. And this week we got a ton of rain, like washing out like culverts and making a big mess. But that was fine. But because it was raining, I just left this thing out here. And then the next day I came out and it wouldn't start. So I put the battery charger on it. And long story short, I forgot to close the hood over all of this. And then I came out this morning and I was like, oh no, because last night it poured and this air cleaner is domed down towards the bolt and it basically funnels all this water right into the engine. And I was worried that I got water in the engine, and I think I did because I bumped the key and it went, "Er." So I'm like, don't push it because you can bend stuff. So basically I think I might have filled the engine up with water, which is not ideal, but it just happened in the past. Like as I was saying, when I originally got this Jeep, it was sitting and it got water in there and it filled one of the cylinders up with water. So not a problem. I'm going to pull all the spark plugs, crank it over, pump all the water out. Also, while I was doing that, the tires all went flat because they're old. And it might be the tires, but it's also, I'm pretty sure the wheels, like the wheels are probably made for tubes, and I'm running tubeless tires, and the seal is probably rusty. Basically, all of it's old, but it's fine. So the battery's charged. That's good. The tires are flat again, and I need to pull all the spark plugs off and crank this thing over. Cross my fingers that I didn't damage anything in that one little and then we can move on to getting it in the shop where I can try to make it actually run, put different tires on it, fuel, fix brakes, basically all the stuff. Oh, and I'm going to change the winch. I know this is presented by Warren, but Warren has a brand new winch, and I want to put this winch on a different Jeep, so we're going to put their brand new winch on. But we'll get to that, hopefully, by the end of this episode. Let's pull some spark plugs. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I should have got an air hose and blasted around all of these, because this back hole has like a bunch of dirt around it. And now there's dirt all around the spark plug, as you can see there. It's okay. Okay, stand back. I'm gonna crank her over. Did it spin over? Did it spray water? It almost didn't sound like it was cranking at all. Oh, it's cranking. Oh, look, there's water coming out of this side too. Oh yeah, a bunch of water came out this side. This side looks pretty dry, but that's good. That means we got it clean. I'm gonna just clean off these spark plugs, put them back in, and then we'll limp it around the corner and move on to the next step, which is making it make engine. All right, that's a good sign. Engine cranks over, spark plugs are in there. Nothing sounds like it's rattling or broken. Dodged a bullet again. This little Buick V6, so tough. Let's air up these tires and get it back in the shop so that we can finally start figuring out what all it needs so we can go be in a Jalopy Jeep shootout. Huh, look at that. I got the Jeep in the shop. It was actually a lot harder than I thought it would be. And I realized that we welded the rear diff on this. So the rear end is a spooled rear end, and it doesn't like to turn when you get on asphalt. And then I got it in here and I was like, I should change the oil because it had water in the oil and I don't know when the oil has been changed last. So I ran to O'Reilly's and grabbed some stuff, and while I was there I came back and the front tire is flat. So but that's fine. It's all kind of what I was expecting. I have new tires that I think I'm going to run on it. They are these guys, which are quite a bit bigger than what's on there, and they're a 17. They're a 255/75 R17, which I think is like about a 31-ish, 32. So I want to fit these on here, which we'll see how that clears. But more importantly, I want to drain the oil. I want to clean out the back of this. There's a bunch of junk in here. It kind of became a dumping ground. Plus, I think there were critters living in here. It has a back seat, which I don't think we want in it for off-road competition. I don't even know if we'll keep the tailgate. We might just strip everything and lighten it up, get everything out of here that we don't need. There's toolboxes under the back seat. There's toolboxes under the passenger seat. I don't know what's in there. It's been so long since I worked on this. So basically my plan for today is change the oil, clean out all the junk, and then we'll get it on the lift, drop all the tires and wheels off of it, and start inspecting everything underneath. And also in that timeline, maybe drain the fuel tank, put new fuel in it, see if the fuel pump runs, and hopefully have this thing up and running. Or at least have a list of things that we need to get in order to fix it so that it will run again. A little rusty. The hinge broke right off. This spare tire mount's pretty cool. It just latches up on there, but I don't think we're gonna want it. So I'm gonna remove this bolt, get the whole thing off. Maybe it'll go back on down the road. That tailgate is rusted. The hinge broke apart as I was taking it open. So that might need to get removed. Well, that might need to get replaced. And I'm not sure about this whole trailer hitch. That might all go so that we don't have it hanging down there to get hit. But we'll start taking stuff apart. And this back seat is kind of neat. It has a whole toolbox underneath it, and it is chock full of stuff. Good stuff, recovery gear and things, but I don't think we want this in the Jeep for the event. I think we will just keep the bed empty. Oh my goodness, this thing's heavy. I got it in the shop. It's at the lift. I'm gonna raise it up. I'm gonna find problems, I'm sure, underneath this thing. But I want to drain the fuel tank and then put some fuel in the tank and see if the fuel pump works. I wanna make it run and then also find problems that hopefully I can fix. But I got all the junk out of it. I didn't clean it. I should probably roll it outside and pressure wash it, but I feel like that can wait. I have a buddy outside run the weed whacker. It's really noisy if you can't hear it. But I'm gonna raise this thing up and drain the fuel tank. And I also gotta get some other tires on. Every 5 minutes, that driver's or passenger front tire goes completely flat. All right, let's do this. Jeep's on the lift. Let's see what problems we have. Number one, look at this U-bolt. That's not good. I mean, 3 out of 4 U-bolt nuts is passing, but still not ideal. We have a Saginaw box up here in the front, so that's pretty good. Do we try and get power steering on this in time? Front shackles don't look great, but they don't look terrible. And no major cracks in the frame, which is always ideal. Everything here is greasy, rusty. Steering joint bolts are kind of blown out, our boots, and everything probably needs greased if we're gonna keep it or if we're gonna change it. There's grease and oil all over the bottom of this diff and it's dripping, so that's less than ideal. Skid plate is smashed up. It doesn't seem to be touching anything. Front drive shaft doesn't look horrible. It's tiny, but it's still there. The brakes were not working at all, so we need to dive into master cylinder, see if there's any fluid in there. And look at that, like, insulation in the bell housing. I wonder if there's like a mouse nest inside there. It won't be for long. Skid plate is really close to the rear parking brake drum on the back of the spacer. Ow, hit my head on the lift. On the back of the Spicer 18. And transmission mount is kind of cracking, but hopefully still good. Everything looks pretty good. We probably need to grease everything and get it all cleaned up, spruced up. Rear axle, U-bolts are all there. U-bolts are all there. Rear pinion seal, very wet, probably leaking. Homebrew exhaust, still doing its thing. Here's where I want to drop this plug and drain the fuel tank. I don't know if it has fuel in it or water in it or anything in it, but we need to drain it out, put fresh gas in it, probably replace that hose. Everything looks old and dry. Rear axles are wet, not ideal. Might be brake fluid, might be gear lube. It is a Dana 44, which is good. I like that. These rear shackles are the old school style. I could take them or leave them. I probably need to, at the very least, grease them. I don't know. Competition truck, do we care? This whole receiver hitch, trailer hitch, though it is period correct, I kind of think I might delete all of that, which might mean I'll smash into the exhaust, but I think it's better to get all of it off of there. And again, tailgate gone. Somebody did put new floors in this, which I don't know if you can see, but those are new floors at some point. This Jeep has had some love. It's got some really cool motor mounts up here. Like, check out these motor mounts. Instead of, like, they have 3 different arms coming off with a bolt running through the chassis. Oh, look at the battery tie down with some string. I probably did that. Not ideal. Yeah, so I'm going to, at the very least, I need to fix this U-bolt, but I'll probably do a lot more stuff than that. So I'm going to drain the fuel tank and put some fuel in the tank, and then we will see if this fuel pump up here, that one right there, is going to pump fuel or if we have to replace it. I would wager that we have to replace it. Cool. Situation normal. Looks like an old Jeep. Want to see something cool? Watch this right here. So I drained the fuel tank. There's basically a fuel tank, and then there's a rubber hose that runs to a long piece of 5/16 fuel line, hard metal line, and then there's another rubber hose that goes up to the fuel pump. And I removed both of those pieces of rubber hose because they were getting hard and crusty. I took my air line and I blasted air through the hard metal line in case there was any junk in there. And then I hooked everything back up to the fuel pump and with new hoses, and I dumped some fuel in the tank, cranked it over, fuel pump works. That is amazing. My fuel pumps never work, but just the fact that the fuel pump is working is amazing, and that's great news. Now let's see if we can actually make this thing crank over and fire up. I think it will. I have good vibes. I have solid good vibes this morning. Let's do this. Old Blue. Make engine noises. We have lots of other things to fix. I don't want to be fixing the engine. You have it in you to be the best engine in this Jeep today, and I believe in you. Sorry about that. I had to throw a little bit of California good vibrations at this thing. All right, let's see. I'm just going to crank it over. I'm just going to crank it over and play with the throttle and see if it wants to start. Ooh. It feels like it should start. It's not cranking over super fast though. So I'm gonna do the next best thing. I have fuel at the carb. Let's pull this air cleaner off. And the carb is really nasty. Probably needs cleaned. But we're not gonna do that because what we're gonna do is I don't know why I still have it up in the air. I'm like, now I'm on a ladder because the Jeep's up in the air, but I'm not going anywhere, but it's fine. Run, Jeep. Let's look down in it. Is it not spraying? Huh. Oh no, it's got tons of gas. Tons of gas down in there. Maybe too much gas at this point. She's gonna run now, or backfire. A little more explosion water. I think I gotta get in it, put my foot on it, let her eat. Fire's cool. That was awesome. I think I don't know that that counts. I mean, it ran, backfired a lot. Probably needs the carb cleaned. Everything's cold too. It's very cold. All right, one more time. One more time. Good vibes only. Oh, you silly little Jeep. This thing's so cool. Good vibrations, doo-doo-doo. Good vibrations, good vibrations. Pretty little Jeep, you know you want to run. We're gonna go to Utah and have some fun. Let's go get a coffee. Got the Jeep to run, got a coffee, feel like we're in a good spot. What do I want to do next? I know I need to fix that U-bolt. I know I need to fix the brakes. The tires are junk. I think we're gonna just move ahead. I'm gonna pull the tires off it. I'm gonna pull this winch off because I have a new winch from Warren that I want to show you guys that I think is pretty cool. And I also found the wire running to the electric choke on the carburetor. Looks like a mouse has been chewing on it. And so maybe that's why it doesn't want to start very well. But once it runs, because it seems to backfire a lot when it's cold, and then once it kind of warmed up a little bit, it seemed to run fine or better. So maybe I need to look into a little bit of electrical wiring for that. And yeah, I'm gonna pull the tires and wheels off and pull this winch off, and we'll see where we get after that. I don't know if a lot of you have seen this winch before. This is the Warren 9.0 RC. This was basically a rock crawling winch designed when competition rock crawling was booming in the early 2000s. And the idea behind it was that where most of the time you would think you want a winch with a lot of rope or cable, like 80 to 100 some feet, these, I think they only get like 50 feet. And the idea is that you want small and lightweight. And when you're in a competition rock crawler, you're not winching long distances. You're usually like climbing an obstacle, and if you need to winch, you need to just go a short distance to a recovery point. And they also were like, we don't need a huge winch. We just need something small and compact because we're trying to keep the thing light, because we're trying to get these rock buggies up over things. So Warren developed the 9.0 RC. You can still get these. They really have a little tiny, like 6-inch drum, a narrow fair lead. They have a really cool hook. I love this hook, but you have to take the whole rope out, and replacing the hook is not easy, or the rope, because it's all kind of looped together. I don't know if they still make them this way. I should look. But I do know that they still make this winch, and it's a great little winch. It worked good on Old Blue, but we're gonna put the new winch on here. And this, I will probably refurbish and put on another Jeep project down the line. I bet it still works just fine. It's just kind of sun faded from being out in the sun. The reds really turn into pink. Come here, little buddy. I rolled the new tires and wheels in here. These are wheels, 17-inch Mickey Thompson wheels that I've had for a long time. They were actually on my TJ when I tried to float it across a river. I had a whole bunch of these wheels. These are like the last 4 of them that I still have. I've traded them off. And the tires are off of a Jeep Gladiator. But there's a problem. They don't look good. I mean, they're a great looking wheel and a great tire on a flat fender. Even a Jalopy Jeep flat fender, they just don't look right. There's too much wheel. It makes it feel like they're running Dubs 20s or bigger. And though I'm sure they would work, and I know it's called the Jalopy Jeep Shootout, and I shouldn't really be worried about aesthetics, I don't think these are gonna fly. Which is fine. I'll find another use for them down the road. But kind of a bummer because now I got to figure out tires and wheels. I really think it needs 15s. These are 17s. There's just too much wheel. I could paint them, but I don't even know that would work. I feel like painting them would also not be good. So, and plus then I'm painting these wheels, which maybe someday I would want to sell or trade. So these are coming back off, and actually they're just sitting up here. They're going to come back off, and I'm going to figure out other wheels and tires in the future. So let's move on to something we can actually fix and finish. I got squirreled really bad. I was planning on putting on the Winch next. This is Warren's new Xeon XC. And this is a 10S, which means it's a 10,000 pound with synthetic rope. And this is their brand new winch, and it's really neat. And I was gonna put this on the Jeep next, and I got squirreled, I got sidetracked. Went on a little side quest. The Jeep was running bad when I would start it, when it was cold. And so I was like, it's probably the choke. So I was like, well, maybe I need to make sure the choke is rewired. And I had looked at the wire on the choke and it looked like it had been chewed by a mouse. Well, that snowballed quickly. I went from replacing the wire to replacing the ignition switch to replacing a bunch of wires to putting fuses on to changing out the old 35 amp little baby alternator for a much larger 94 amp one-wire alternator, which ironically, now that I have it installed, I realize is not a one-wire. So I'm going back to the auto parts store again tomorrow, even though I've been there 10 times in the past 48 hours to get this all together. And part of my thought process was, well, I need to get it to run right before I put a winch on it. And then I was like, well, if I put a winch on it, it's going to have a lot of draw, so I need to make sure I have a good alternator, and I need to make sure all the wiring's good. So, snowballed. And it only has this little baby battery right here. It really needs a bigger battery or a second battery. But let's get back on task. This is Warren's new Xeon XC, and this winch is different than a lot of their older winches because it's more compact. It's smaller, it's lower. It still has, I think, 40 feet per minute line speed, and it is O-ring sealed, so it's great in water. It also is like adjustable. You can turn the motor and the gearing, transmission is what they call this. You can turn those. The other thing about this new winch is there was a demand for a winch that was smaller, more compact. Maybe not smaller in strength, but smaller in exterior dimensions, because a lot of these new vehicles have all these sensors. They have parking sensors, they have cruise control, speed sensors. There's all these sensors that are on the front of cars because there's so many computers and gadgets in cars. But people still want a winch. They still want to go four-wheel, and they still want to have a way to recover, self-recover if possible, or recover other people. So this is probably not designed for a 1950 CJ3A, but it'll still work there. And the idea behind it was to make a winch that was more compact. It didn't have a big solenoid pack. It wasn't a tall upright winch. It was adjustable in the transmission and the motor, so that if you have a bumper and you want to put this behind the bumper, or it's an aftermarket bumper on, say, like a Tacoma or a new Bronco, something that has all these sensors, and you want to stuff it down inside there, this was the type of winch that was kind of designed for that market. Plus, they offer it in a 10, a 12, and a 14. So they are making these big enough that you could put them on a full-size truck if you had such a vehicle. I'm going to bust this thing open, and this mount, I don't even know where this mount came from that's on the front of the Jeep, but we are going to see if that will bolt to it, and if not, we'll either modify this mount or find another one. Oh, this is the Jalopy Jeep shootout. The idea behind this is that you want a vehicle that is kind of budget friendly. Putting a brand new winch is probably not budget friendly, but this is a cool new winch, A. They do make the exception of safety gear. Is a winch safety gear? I think so. Even though we might be winching ourselves up the trail, I consider it safety gear. I feel like a winch is probably one of the first things you should buy for a vehicle if you're getting into four-wheeling and you don't really know what you're doing. Put a winch on it, go out and have fun. You have a tool to help get you unstuck when you do get stuck. But I think this is probably about $1,800. So if you're doing the math, which don't do the math because it won't add up, this is an $1,800 winch. The old winch was cheaper. Well, no, actually it wouldn't be cheaper. I think the rock crawling winches are more expensive. It's just that it was an old version, so you could justify it as being cheaper. But at the end of the day, this is a good winch, and I think this little Jeep is going to need all the help it can get. What do we got in here? Spydura synthetic winch line. Xeon XC fair leads can be utilized for both feet down and feet forward installations. No separate offset fair lead is needed. So it does have a good old-fashioned winch controller. Push down for winch in, push up for winch out. There it is. what's cool here is that like all of the controls are right here, and the free spool's over here, but you can also remove this and remote mount it. So if you have a winch bumper and you can't really get access to it very easily, this can be removed and remote mounted, and this can also be rotated. So if there's like a weird hole in the front, or you have to reach down in behind in front of the radiator, you can adjust this for ease of use. Basically the idea is that these new bumpers that don't have a winch just sitting out in front like an old school Jeep, they need a winch that will work with all of those intricacies, and this is what they have to offer. All right. This winch mounting plate is not ideal. It's been notched out in the front for the fair lead, and it's also been cut here for the steering box, which isn't bad other than the fact that one of the bolt holes that I need to use on this winch has been, it's kind of been cut into. So, and it's all, it sits down nice like I like it, but it's not really gonna work with everything here. So I'm kind of thinking I'm gonna pull this winch plate off and look around, see if I have another one, or maybe even run to like one of the local shops and see if I can buy a winch plate that hasn't been modified, so that I know I have a stronger base to start off of. Things have snowballed again. This is the old winch plate, and I had to remove it because this hole that's cut in the winch plate is right into one of the mounting holes, because right underneath that is the steering box. As you can see over here, this has a Saginaw conversion steering, which is great, but it's not power steering, it's just manual steering. And I was like, what if I want power steering? So things snowballed. First of all, I knew that I wasn't going to use this. So I ran to Harbor Freight and I bought this plate, which is great. It's much bigger. It allows you to adjust the mount side to side. So if I want to like push the winch over a little bit and maybe not have the fair lead centered right in the middle, that'll be fine, and I'll still have room if I have to cut a hole in the plate for the steering box. Or I can center it and space it up. So then I was like, well, if I'm gonna do this, I should maybe dive into the whole power steering conversion, because just because this Saginaw manual steering box is on the frame, the power steering box is bigger. So this is a Saginaw power steering box, and this is going to live in there where the manual steering box is. This is one's actually from AGR. I don't know where I got this. I think I kind of acquired it from somebody that was getting rid of stuff. But I want to mount this in there before I mount the winch. So I ran over to Advanced Adapters and I got this, which is a frame mount to mount the Saginaw box to the frame. And while I was there, I picked up some frame plates so that I can reinforce the frame rails where the steering box is going. And you actually get one for both sides just so you can kind of beef up everything. And in the midst of doing all of this and thinking, hey, I'm gonna put power steering on it, I was like, do I really wanna keep this front axle? I think it's a Dana 25. Actually, it might be a 27. So, well, I know that this axle is closed knuckle, has drum brakes, and it doesn't have a whole bunch of options as far as like lockers. So I decided I was going to upgrade the front axle. So in the midst of trying to mount the winch, everything has snowballed in the front end. I am going to go to power steering. I ordered some power steering parts, mounting parts for a pump from a buddy's website called Brennan's Garage. And then I went and got the advanced adapters parts for the steering gearbox. And over here, I have Dana 30 front axle from a 1973 CJ5 that was just a rusty frame out back. And now I'm going to dive into cleaning this axle up, doing a disc brake conversion on it, also with parts from Brennan's garage, and swinging this underneath the front of Old Blue. All I was going to do was going to mount this winch. I was going to do that, button up this episode. Things are snowballing. I need to cut brackets off. I need to get the old old manual steering box off. I need to drop this front axle and get it out of here. And then I need to weld in the frame plates, mock up the steering gearbox, put the bumper back on. Well, I'm going to probably take the bumper off so I can weld stuff and then put the bumper back on. And then I think I can put the winch plate on to mount the new Xeon XC. Yeah. This is how it goes sometimes. Like, you want to just mount the winch, but you can't mount the winch because it's going to hit the steering. You can't do the steering because da 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 da. All right, so I'm going to grab the torch, make some bolts come loose, and then we'll figure out the next step, because things are happening, or things need to start happening. We got the bumper off. This is a great bumper. Strong like bear. All right, I gotta get this steering box off. The steering box is stuck onto the column shaft. I heated it, beat on it, and still stuck. But I cut the old mount off. I need to clean all of this metal here and here because we have these new frame plates that will go in there. And yeah, still lots to do to get a winch on. Snowball. Project snowballed. There it goes. Got it out. Crusty old Saginaw box. Ooh, smells great. What have we got to deal with? This needs cleaned up. These rivets need removed. All of this needs cleaned. We have frame plates to weld in here. We have to clean up around that cross member. This steering shaft has like this U-joint, but it's actually welded to the shaft. So I think I need to cut that off because I don't think this U-joint was going to, I know this U-joint is not going to work with the new steering box. So all of this needs to get cut off. But I want to keep as much length as possible, so I'm going to try and cut it right up there at the weld. And then on this side, there's already a frame plate in there. So I don't really think I need to get rid of it. This side doesn't have a steering box attached, but I may kind of fill in this space back here. And then it also has rivets that need ground out, cleaned out, cut off, drilled out, and everything. Somebody re-welded this, this whole corner, the spring hanger. The spring hangers are pretty ratty, but you know what? I'm not really too worried about it. That's probably going to be future Fred. I feel like we can have jalopy spring hangers. That'll probably break, but whatever. We'll figure that out in Utah. Okay, lots of grinding cleanup, cutting parts, and hopefully getting to a point where we can put a winch on, and steering box, and a bumper back on, and a new front Dana 30. I'm gonna get this axle out of here. and swing these springs out of the way, and then I can clean all the frame, and then the new axle will go to live in here. So yeah, making progress. Kind of jumping around, but I feel like I need to jump around, and I also feel like getting this axle out of here will seal the deal. There's no going back. I mean, I could go back, I could put it back in, but there's no going back. We're taking this axle out. We're gonna put that Dana 30 in the front. It'll steer better, have more parts availability. It will require getting re-geared. It'll probably require getting a disc brake conversion. It'll require a bunch of work, but by taking this out, I'm dedicating myself to making that work happen. Hopefully Dave shows up to help, but probably not. I'll just get it all done. And then I'll go to Utah and Dave will be like, yeah, let's peel out. No, it's probably, David has offered to come and help, but we don't live in the same state, so it's kind of hard to just stop by. All right, I'm gonna get this axle out of here. Everything's moving along. I pulled the front axle out of Old Blue. I believe it was a Dana 27 closed knuckle drum brake, and I replaced it with a Dana 30 open knuckle, still drum brake, but I'm gonna change that. And it has the same spring perch location, so I was able to drop the springs, roll it into place, put it back on. I think this axle will come back out because I need to re-gear it. The rear axle is a Dana 44 and it has 538 gears. This was in a CJ5 and I believe it had 373 gears. It was in a CJ5 with a 304 at some point. I ended up with just kind of the chassis. And I like these axles. They're a little bit wider, and these tires would be perfect because we're supposed to be able to run up to a 33, and these are some 33s. Problem is this one doesn't hold air, it's got holes in it. That one seems to be holding air. So, and I also, honestly think I want to run a little bit smaller than a 33. I want to do like a 31 or a 32, which wouldn't give me as much ground clearance, but I think it will keep the tires out of the leaf springs and the fenders and everything. So if we're rock crawling, it would probably be better. But I don't know, it's gonna come down to whatever I get my hands on at the last minute. I put the axle in here because I need to get the steering box in, and I wanted to kind of figure out where stuff should live so that I can get the steering box mounted, and then I can build the framework or the bracketry, figure out how to mount the winch. So, oh, and also while I have it up in the air, I drained the rear diff, which is the Dana 44, like I said. That one, we welded the spider gears together. So, which is not ideal. It's fine on a budget, but it's basically a spool, and spools are really hard to turn. Like if a spool wants to go straight. So even if you turn, it kind of wants to keep going straight. So I kind of want to swap that out. I might look into a different locker, probably a locker in the front and in the rear, either like a Lockrite or maybe a limited slip up front. We got a couple options. We got to kind of see what we can get our hands on in the short timeline. So everything's moving along. I already plated in the passenger side frame rail, and which wasn't really that important, but I had the plate, so I made it. So I need to plate this side and also get that box mounted. And I also put in a water heater today. That was kind of something. I haven't had hot water for like 4 days. So if I've been looking stinky, that's because I've been taking showers. They're just cold showers. Not ideal. I don't know why these people like to do cold plunges. It's not for me. I've done some polar plunges, like where you jump in the ocean and then you jump out really quick. But the people that sit in like a ice bath every day for 20 minutes, I don't know about that. I'd like to try it, but I don't really know that I'd like to try it because I don't think I would really like it. All right, let's mock up the steering box. The steering shaft right here, which that can be adjusted. It's nice that it's below this cross member. A lot of times the steering shaft has to run through that cross member. So, and then I have the drag link here, which that can be adjusted too. That can be lengthened. The way the bracket works, I'm going to grab it, is it usually goes on top of the frame rail, and they box this in and then the bracket wraps around it. I'm kind of thinking about putting it underneath the frame rail so it sits kind of inside and it welds to the top inside, and then the frame boxing would have like a cutout that it would slide into. But everything's kind of adjustable at this point. I'm going to grab it and eyeball it. There we go. So it's normally something kind of like that. Kind of like that, which is not too far off. It's hitting the cross member, it's hitting the radiator too, which kind of makes me want to put it below the top of the frame rail here. Kind of box it inside and underneath. And then everything is hard to get to, like as far as the fasteners. Oh boy, and it's heavy. It's heavy to hold up there and mock up. But kind of like that more than having it running into the radiator. And it can come back here. You gotta watch these lines that are gonna come out. They can be pretty tight. Everything's super tight. But kind of think right like that is kind of my jam. Kind of my jam. I also have these bolts running from the outside in, but I could also turn them around and run them from the inside out and then have a nut that goes on there. So if the hardware is kind of hard to get to, I could just get a nut in there and tighten it up versus trying to feed a whole bolt through, because the bolt kind of wants to live right where the spring hanger wants to live. Everything wants to live in the same spot. And if I bring it up, there's more room, but then other things get in other things' ways. So I think what I need to do is grab a big clamp it into place, and then sort of brainstorm on like, okay, should it go back? Should it go up? Is there the perfect spot? And then once I kind of have that, then I can mark it and maybe tack the bracket in and then work backwards from that. Wow, that's kind of perfect. Our drag link is really close to being where it wants to be. And this is hanging down below the front bumper, but it's also kind of right where the shackle is. And I could add a thing to the bumper to protect it. The bolt for the lower front mount is not easy to get to. The top one would work. The rear one would be fine. Might actually, gosh, it looks like it needs to come forward. But I don't really know how it's going to come forward, because then the bolt for the shackle is going to crash right into the mount for the steering box. And already it needs to come down because the steering shaft on the back is hitting the cross member end. Like it's a millimeter away from the radiator. That's not gonna work. That's not gonna work. Everything's gonna be tight. Everything's kind of tight. I almost wonder if it went on top of the frame, but I kind of angled it up. And so the steering shaft kind of ran up to it instead of flat. It's not unusual to have to notch the cross member, but the radiator on this Jeep is down really low, and I don't know if that's because it's got a V6 in it and they mounted it lower or what. I went and looked at the radiator. I don't think moving it up is an option because it looks like the top of the radiator is right where the hood closes. So we're gonna leave the radiator alone. Plus it kind of looks like it's in a factory spot. Like the holes all kind of match. So I don't really know that it needs to change. I think we need to just sort out steering box. So I'm gonna move it up on top, but maybe space it so it angles down and see what happens. Let's find some little shims to stack in there. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. This bolt looks clear. That bolt looks doable. That bolt looks great. Steering shaft clears cross member and radiator. Drag link. Nice. I like that. I like that. I think what I need to do is kind of grind. This mount is like a vertical, and then it has a little thing that kicks over, and that piece that kicks over, I might need to grind it so that it leans the whole box back the way it is right now. And then things will be happier. It's all gonna be tight like a tiger, but it'll work. It's all gonna work. This bolt will just have to kind of get put in from the other side in. Okay. How do we want to move forward here? Maybe we box the inside of this, but we make the piece that boxes it kind of set the angle. Set the angle. And then we work backwards from that. Okay, I think I have an idea. I'm gonna make the plate that goes inside here, and maybe the plate will have an angle cut into it, so it kind of lines up this lip to kind of set the box at the angle that I want. And then hopefully this will just drop right in here. Perfect, perfect, smurfect. Okay, drag link out of the way, steering box out of the way. Oh yeah, this is gonna be great. This is gonna be great. This is gonna be great. I'm gonna do a whole bunch of grinding on this plate to get it to sit around this cross member, follow the bottom of the frame, which has got a little bit of a curve to it, and then on the top side, it will have an angle It's going to have like an angle right about here, and that will help set the steering box mount at the angle it wants to be. And then that I'll have like some space under the front of that steering box mount that I will have to fill in, put a little scab in there or something. But there's gonna be a bunch of grinding, cutting and grinding and massaging, which I think is the name of the game when you're fabricating on a 1960, 70, 80, 90, 2000, 2010, 2020, 76-year Jeep, 76-year-old Jeep. Oh, Blue, you're gonna be awesome. The thing's gonna be so much more fun to drive than it was before. Gonna have better brakes, gonna have better steering. The engine's gonna run better. Gonna have a locker, gearing. It's gonna be awesome. We're gonna drive this thing every day. Enough chit chat. Oh yeah, coming together. Every notch, it's a little bit closer. I grind it. So I'm grinding this because there's a tubular cross member right here, and I want that to fit up nice and tight against it, so that the steering box and the front springs and the bumper and the winch don't rip off the rest of the Jeep. So I'm slowly clearancing this so it slides back in here. Every time I grind, it gets a little bit closer to being super duper. Oh yeah, very close. It needs about 1/8 of an inch more in, and then this will get ground so that it kind of curls. Oh, actually, maybe if I grind that now, it will bring it down. Yeah, let's try it. You have to think about, so I want this to like butt up against this tube, but I also want it to drop down, and I want this gap to be closed. So as I grind this, it kind of rotates down, which closes up the gap. You kind of have to think about all the movements that this thing's going to make as it kind of comes together. And then you have to kind of eyeball and be like, right here. Right there's what needs to disappear. Make a little mark, do a little grind. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, really getting close now. It's really just about there. Oh yeah, that thing is so close. How do we look? Oh. Almost perfect, West Virginia. Battery's dead. Oh yeah, I like that. I think we're ready to tack this guy in here. So what I did was I left, you can see here how the frame rail is flat. Well, I left this little kicker on the piece, the plate that goes on the inside here. In fact, if I can find a pen, I can show you exactly how. Oh, it's already marked. So that line there is where the frame rail is, but I have this kick up. And the idea is that when this is tacked in place, that steering box brace will come up here and this kicker will kind of lean it down, and that will keep the input shaft to clear the cross member and, even more importantly, the radiator. So I'm going to get this lined up absolutely perfect, or as close to perfect as I can. I'm going to put a tack, beep, and maybe 2 tacks somewhere easy that if I need to change it I can. And then I'm going to grab that box, I'm going to set it up here, and it's going to be perfect. It's going to be super. And then I can burn it in, and then we can get the box bracket welded on. And then we'll have the steering box in place, and then we can keep moving forward and get the winch mount. All right. Switch out of grinding gear into welding gear. Everything's covered in grinding dust. Everything's a little bit... Oh, man, last night, after grinding and making the plate for the other side, I woke up in the middle of the night with metal in my eye. I could tell it was there because I've had it happen before. I wear these glasses, but I need better ones for grinding. Long story short, wear your safety gear, kids. You don't want to lose an eye or get metal in your eye or any of that stuff. I'm gonna grab a square, see if it will help me square this up. Let's see how our steering box looks. Does it sit where we want it to sit? I should probably bring the Jeep down a little so I'm not standing on a ladder. Sometimes I forget I have a lift. All right. Oh, pick up the big old heavy thing. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I like it. I love it. Okay, a couple things. I need to, the frame kicks out here. I need to grind that. And then I need to do other things. That's where I want it. That one's easy. This one's easy. This one's really not easy, but I can make it work. I can put a nut on it. All right, we're gonna burn it in. We are burning it in. Grinding gear off, welding gear back on. I should probably put my leathers or at least a long sleeve shirt on to weld so you don't get sunburnt. Skin cancer. Put my Jay Leno car guy shirt on. Jay Leno, he's a cool dude. I got to meet him once. We raced on Dirt Every Day once. Jay Leno was in a Tacoma. He got to drive it. He wasn't very fast, but he was a nice guy, super nice guy. All right. I think we'll put a little clamp on, clamp this over. I think we might put a little tack right here and then do some clamping. Once again, I'm working on this thing up on a stool, but that's okay. That looks pretty good for a rusty welder like me who likes to weld on rust and also hasn't been welding in a bit. It's not going to fall off. Is it pretty? Maybe not the prettiest, but it's not going to fall off. That didn't sound great, but you know what? It's welded. It's welded together. It is welded on there, and it is not gonna come off anytime soon. We can hit it with a little bit of grinder. People will think we know what we're doing. I think we're gonna do some cleanup grinding and yeah. Shut off the welder. Take off the welding gear, put on the grinding gear. I got it on. It's angled. The front of the steering box should be behind the bumper. Actually, I could hold the bumper up there. I will need to trim the bumper aggressively. But that's fine. I think I was planning on trimming the bumper aggressively anyways. I'll have to trim like in here and underneath. The bumper is kind of aesthetic. But I think the steering box is where I want it. I have it on there with a good clamp. It's gonna get welded on. there's a big kind of like gap space under the little arm that kicks out here on the back. I'm gonna have to make some sort of shim to slide in there that'll weld to the frame rail and then also to this kind of a pie-shaped piece. But I like how it looks. I think I'm gonna tack it in place. This bolt is easy to get to. This bolt back here, ooh, I should double check that one. How does that one look? Oh yeah, that one's easy to get to. And the bottom one in the front is not easy to get to, but we'll figure that out. We'll have a set screw with a nut on either side or something. All right, bumper, you will be massaged later. All right, let's put some tacks on this guy to hold the bracket in place. Then we'll get the steering box out of here. And then we will go through and weld all of it to everything. And then we will come back tomorrow. That's our plan. One thing is the rearmost power line is going to be a bare. We may need to massage the bottom corner of the grill, but that's also going to be hidden by the winch plate. Winch plate will probably need massaged also to deal with the power steering lines. Power steering lines will be a problem. That's future Fred's problem, not right now Fred's problem. Steering box mount is not falling off. So now we can come in and remove the steering box and oh boy. I probably should be holding it before it falls off. Yeah! Look at that guy. This thing's gonna get a nice weld around there and around there. And then on the back side here. And then we'll build a whole PC pie that sits in there. Locks all that into place. And then it will not fall off ever. Let's weld this guy on like a boss. Last night I got the power steering box mount on the frame. I added this gusset. It's cut open so that I can get to the hardware for the bumper. So I think what I'm gonna do next is put the bumper on and then I can massage the bumper to clear the steering box. I got the bumper back on, and as you can see here, I had to modify it to clearance around the steering box. It took quite a bit of grinding, massaging, and there's still a bolt that's gonna go right in here, but it's gonna have to be like a stud and then put a nut on this end because there's not enough room to bring it in from that side. But it's all coming together, and I mean, if I really wanted to get crazy, I could probably drill a hole through all of this and put a piece of tubing in and have a long bolt, which maybe I'll do someday, but I think for now, I'm just gonna put a stud and a nut and maybe a nut on both ends. We'll have to figure that out. Might have to make it out of a 7/16 course bolt or figure something out for that. Bumper is on and it looks pretty stock. On the top side, you can see the steering box. I had to clearance for this little nub. I still need to build a plate that goes underneath all of this. And then I want to put the winch plate over this. And some of these things are kind of protruding up. I might come in here and grind a little bit because I don't think this needs to be as high as it is, but I still have this bolt on the top of the steering box, and almost every steering box is gonna have that. So I need to cut a hole in the winch mount for that. And So I think that's my next step, is to get the winch plate up here and try and figure out how to mount it on here as low as possible, as strong as possible, and get it up so it's flush with the front face of the bumper. All right, here is our winch plate. And we know it's gonna sit right about there, but it's sitting up really high because there's a bolt. There's a bolt protruding up there that is on the top of the steering box. So I'm gonna come down underneath here and mark it. And then I'm gonna cut a hole in the bottom so that this sits flat, and then we'll see the next thing that hits. There you can see the mark. I'm gonna show you what I did. Oh my goodness. The winch plate is still sitting high on the driver's side, and that's because I did more work. This bolt used to be just a little shorty bolt, but I had this idea that if I put a winch plate on here and I ever needed to change that, it would be like next to impossible to get to. So I welded this piece of tube, and then I have basically a sleeve that's welded to all the bracketry and to the frame, and I like put in some wedge metal. Basically all of this is done, but this is higher than the front of the bumper. I also put a tube on the back. Even though this steering box doesn't have a fourth mount, there are some Saginaw boxes that do have 4 mounts. So if I have to change the box, or I find a different box, or there's any issue and I end up with a box that has all 4 bolt holes, I'm set to bolt it on. So the sleeves are all welded on. All of this is welded on, and I ground it down, but it's still higher than the bumper. And I can't space the bumper up. So now I need to come up with a plan on how to mount the winch plate basically about a ½ an inch above the bumper. Oh, and I also cut out this little window in the winch plate to clear the steering box, which might be a moot point now. Well, it's not, because that little hole still, but it may be a moot point because everything might get mounted up high. And then whatever I do on this side, I have to duplicate on that side, and then there may be a gap in between the winch plate and the bumper, and maybe I put some little spacers in there. And basically I want the winch plate and the bumper to kind of act as a front cross member and help strengthen the whole frame. There's a cross member underneath behind the grill in front of the radiator, but I think having one up here wouldn't hurt. So I made it stronger and I made it better, but then I made myself more work. But it's kind of, it was going to be that way no matter what because of how I have the box mounted. So now I need to come up with something nice and clean and simple and like lives here and then holds the winch plate to all of this. Yeah. I've been grinding and welding a lot, and I got it all. I really like how it's coming together, but I'm also like, how are we gonna get this next step finalized? So that's where I'm at. And then even once I get the thing sitting up here, level and dialed and everything, then I need a really strong way to attach the winch plate to the frame and maybe tie in the bumper and have it really strong so that if I'm winching this little Jeep, it doesn't rip off the front of the frame. I think I'm going to, maybe I'll make a plate, piece of like C channel that covers all of this and has a nice flat level height. I don't really want to weld to the bumper because I like that the bumper is removable. Though I don't really know when I'm going to remove it, but all of this could be welded. I need a tape measure and a thinking cap. I did more things. I added some C channel. I took a piece of 2x4 box tubing and I sliced it and diced it, and then I massaged it and I welded it. And I think this is where everything is gonna live. I probably didn't need to cut this big of a hole in here, but I did. I think I probably have the piece. I could weld it back in if I really didn't like it. I did need this hole in the middle though. So the winch plate is getting a home. I need to square it all up and I need to figure out how it's going to attach to these pieces. I welded these ribs to the bumper. I wasn't going to weld to the bumper, but then I did it anyways. Because I was like, why would I ever take the bumper off? The steering box is in, but it can come back out. It's gonna have to come in and out. I think I wanna drill a hole that goes through the winch plate, through these little ribs, through the bumper, and then through the frame rail, and sandwiches everything so that that will be like the frontmost bolt point on the winch plate. And then on the back, I don't know what I want to do. I have an idea of maybe running a bolt down along the outside through a piece of tube that's welded to the frame and to the top, to the side of the rib. So it'll be kind of like long bolts in the back and then short bolts kind of through everything in the front. And I think that would keep it all from twisting up. And yeah. And then the bolts that go through the plate, the back ones will be not a problem at all. The front ones go right into the bumper. So I will probably drill all the way through the bumper and then put a spacer or a plate through all of this to help support everything. And yeah, I think it's gonna look good. It's gonna be, and then I think I'll trim the ends of the bumper. It doesn't really need to stick out this far. And honestly, as the tire turns and articulates, it might get into these corners. So shortening it up would not hurt at all. I have the stock bumper on it still. This bumper was original because it was still riveted to the frame, unless somebody riveted it on, which I doubt anybody did. So I'm pretty stoked. I'm pretty stoked how it's coming along. It took a bit of thinking and braining and trying to get my head wrapped around how to make it all fit and make it look right and make it work right and make it be strong. And I think I have it licked. Pretty happy. So basically I got to do a bunch of, well, I got to do more welding and more drilling. And then I got to kind of get bolts through multiple plates and hold everything down. But yeah, I think that's where it's going to live. I mean, it's nothing flashy, but it'll hold that new winch and it will be strong, and I should be able to winch this thing up some obstacles out in Utah in like a few weeks. It's not long. This Jeep has a lot of work to be done before we head to Sand Hollow. Yeah, I'm gonna drill and mount, and I think the next step, this thing should be bolted up. It's getting there. These bolts on the outside run through this little spacer, like rib that I added, and then through the bumper and then into the frame rail. And then these, which will actually come up from below, will run through a spacer, and then those will go through the bumper. And everything's coming together. We got this bolt here, basically 4 bolts across the front tying the winch plate to the bumper, the outer 2 tying it to the frame, and then I need something in the back so that it doesn't peel up. So I don't know exactly that part. I'm gonna kind of brainstorm on that until tomorrow. And I think by end of the day tomorrow, this bumper will be wrapped with the winch on it. And I still have access to the power steering lines for the power steering box, so I'm stoked on that. It's coming together. Every day, chip away, get this thing a little bit closer to ready to go do some wheeling. Pretty stoked on how this is all coming together. I put these tubes on the outside on both sides, and that's where a big 1/2-inch bolt will bolt down the back of the frame plate. I drilled and sleeved the front. I put these ribs on the top. Everything is coming together. I also drilled the middle of the bumper, and I put spacers on the bottom of the winch plate. I removed the steering box again so that I can get access to the hardware out here on these ends, or at least on this corner. And then I think we are about ready to throw this all together. Paint it? I don't think I'm gonna paint it. I think I'm gonna just leave it. It's a Jalopy Jeep. It can be a little ugly and rusty. It's not gonna rust away out here where I live. It'll end up with a nice coat of surface rust, and that'll be good. Let's put the winch plate on. I did weld the hole back in, and I put these spacers on the bottom. So I'm pretty stoked on how this is coming together. I have OCD. I don't know if it's actually OCD. Well, if it's OCD, this is my OCD. If I'm putting together something like this, and I put the bolt and the nut in and everything on the other side, and then I go to put this side on, and I don't have the same metal locking nut. Some people call these a crimp nut, some people call them a stover, whatever you call them. If I don't have another one, I go to town. I don't just use a nylock, which I've got. I don't use a regular nut and a lock washer, which I've got. I have enough to do both on all of them. I wanted to use these. I wanted something that was very hard to remove this. I wanted it to stay really tight. And I didn't have one. actually I did have one. I only had one. I wanted a second one. So I went to True Value, closed. Tractor Supply closed. Or no, Tractor Supply was open. They were sold out. Napa did not have it. Finally, I went to another hardware store, Orchard Hardware, and I found it. Even though it was in a drawer and the drawer was full of the wrong nuts, I found the right nut. That's my OCD, is I will go out of my way to buy this one nut. Actually, I bought a whole handful so that I could kind of restock the drawer that has all the hardware in. But I could have had this on here quicker, but I didn't, because I was trying to make it just the way I wanted it to be made. Why? I don't know. Probably dumb. Because it's a Jalopy Jeep. It doesn't need to match. It doesn't need to have matching hardware all around it. It can be kind of ugly and kind of crusty. But not for me. Not today. Today, I had to do it this way. And now the winch plate is on there, super strong. Now we can finally put the winch on it. I've cut the corners to make room for tire clearance if this thing turns and flexes. It'll still hit the leaf springs, and it'll probably hit the bumper and other stuff, but it's not gonna hit this right here, I don't think. It might, who knows what'll happen when it's all twisted and stuffed and rock crawling. But I'm at a point where I can finally put the new Warn winch on here. That was a lot of work. That should not have been that much work. But it's okay. Oh, and then I have this one little baby off-roady light. I think that guy will live like somewhere right in here. But I gotta get the winch in first, and then we'll see where everything else goes. Whew. Look at that. Look at that. The winch is on. The new Warn Xeon XC10S. I wish I had a cooler name. I think XC is kind of meh. And I like Warn winches, but come on, give it a cool name, like the Mega Puller. All right, I'm gonna wrap up this episode. I've been working on putting a winch on the front of an old Jeep, which should take 15 minutes. But I also put in a Dana 30 front axle, which is gonna come back out and get completely rebuilt. I converted it to power steering. I put a 1-wire alternator. I did some wiring. I've done so much, I don't even remember what else I did. But I've reinforced stuff, made stuff stronger, better, cooler. I need to wire the winch, which is really, really easy. There's 2 wires. And take them right to the battery. Don't hook them up to a switch or anything. Positive and ground. And the tricky part is routing them, making sure everything's nice and safe and clean and pretty. So that has to happen. Then I have to spool the rope onto here, which is super simple, and maybe I'll show you that on a future episode, but right now I just want to wrap this thing up. The winch is installed, the power steering box is off, but it'll go back on, and everything is going to clear, and everything is looking cool, and it is way too fancy of a winch for a Jalopy Jeep, but stay tuned and see how this little Jeep does. We have more projects to do to it. And then we're gonna take it out to the desert in Utah and go 4-wheeling. I am sure the other competitors are showing up with way cooler, fancier stuff than this. But I like this little Jeep, and I have it, and it's gonna be great. I may break the budget of $5,000, but it'll be on little tires and it'll have strong parts in it. And at the end of the day, if we don't win the Jalopy Jeep shootout, I'll have something fun to go four-wheeling in. That's it for this Dirt Daily. We'll see you guys next time.